Hi, it's Rich B&AZ here. Today's trip to the garage is for this Triumph Bonneville, which I've owned since new, but it's not idling well, so I'm going to take the carbs off. See if I think it's just the idle jet that's plugged, and also the idle screw on the other side is stuck. It's just not turning. So there's a couple of things I need to fix. I have done a previous video on this, and I'm going to put a link in the description underneath the text, so have a look for that link in there if you need to know all the bits and pieces you've got to take off to get there. And to make this video shorter, I'm going to start with the carburetors on the workbench, so I'll see you in just a second. While taking the carburetors off, I noticed that I had quite a bit of oil down here below the vent tube. So I popped the vent tube off. I noticed that this end of it was hardening up from the heat because it's, it's attached to something that's hot. It's soft back along here, but it's hard at this end, so this spring clamp just isn't doing anything. So I added a hose clamp and really wound down on it, cleaned it up a bit down here. So hopefully it's going to fix that. So I'm draining the carbs here with a 3mm hex bit. I'm going to run out into one of these aerosol can tops. See a little bit of daylight there? It's hard. I've got to use the camera. There's daylight. That whole flange for this housing on the end here. Where is it? Here. That whole flange is bent. Oh, daylight. So I thought, I've got all these feeler gauges that I barely use anymore. So I thought, well, I wonder how big a feeler gauge I can get in there. That's a 13 thou feeler gauge. Yay! So generally the carbs look pretty clean. This is before I'm dismantling them. The float bowls are over there. They look pretty good too. A little bit of crud in the bottom of that left one, but pretty clean. There was almost nothing in the filter after 40,000 miles. It's the first time I've taken it out. That idle adjustment screw is still quite stiff. I'm actually going to take it all the way out and see what's going on with it. So this is the whole idle adjustment thing. Really fine thread on it. Then there was a washer at this top end and the spring, and then it threads into the housing. I did spray some WD-40 on it. Nothing was happening until I actually got down near the end. Then you WD-40 acted and let it come out. So it probably just needed some lube. So I will add some engine oil to this. Yeah, the idle jets are all the way down the bottom of this hole. And I'm just getting a screwdriver in, taking them out. Importantly, when you put these back in, do not over tighten because they're brass. Okay, so these are the idle jets. They're pretty tiny, and it's not going to show on the camera, but when I look down them, I can't see through them. So I'm pretty certain that's plugged. Luckily, I have a tool that I made up from a wire brush that fits this hole nicely. So yeah, I could feel the crud in there. I'm just going to rotate it on there. So you don't want to put a drill in here because you don't want to mess with the actual size. That will push the crud out. I'm going to go through these holes too on the side. Just make sure I can get all the way through them like that. So I've got a little bowl here filled with carb cleaner. I'm soaking that for a while. So I've already put a blast of carb cleaner in down this offset hole, not the central one, but the offset hole for the idle circuit. And the fluid comes out of here quite readily, which is the idle jet goes. Now I'm going to do the same thing, except put a finger over it. And that should carry on that carb cleaner all the way to where the fuel is mixed. A series of 4 holes there in that bright part. That's where it all comes out. It's the idle mixture. There it is back there. And then it goes a little further on to the idle screw at the front. To make sure that the passageway is clear, I'm going to blast the carb cleaner through it again with my finger over this hole, and you should see stuff come out of this one. Yep. Same for the other one. Okay, so this is the idle screw assembly, the screw itself with the final pilot jet tapered needle on the end. There's a spring, there's a washer, and there's an O-ring at the very bottom of the hole. This O-ring has been nicely flattened out, so I just happen to have some other ones that are the same size from a Mikuni that I'm going to put on there. They are in fact just a little bit rounder, got a bit more roundness to them. So when you're putting these back in, I highly recommend a dose of WD-40 right on the end. Oh, am I running out? Here we go. That makes sure the O-ring is lubricated as it goes down that thread. You don't want to be cutting it as it's going down that thread. It's in the hole, screw it all the way in, and then 2 out for me. Right, if I'm lucky, oh, there you go. Look at that, I can see all the way through that jet now. Couldn't do that before. Yay. Should run at idle. It was running at full power and everything fine. When I first was taking that throttle screw out, I was looking here, and this is the area where the 4 holes are for the bulk idle mixture. And I noticed that the plate was just about half covering that first hole towards the engine. So that would be the place I'm going to set the throttle idle screw, so we get about the right amount of idle. Okay, in this picture you can see I've got that first hole completely uncovered, so now I'm going to adjust it down so that it's just about half covered like that. Yeah, that should be good. I think that'll work. Right, these are ready to go back on. Don't think there's anything special about putting stuff back in. One thing about this end is I'm going to put some grease on these inlet stubs just to make it a bit easier to slide on. I'll see you later. Okay, started up, first prod, and now it is idling with no choke. Probably have to reduce the idle screw just a little bit, so when I guess that. That doesn't sound too bad actually. Well, I think it's good. Good to go.